My name's Christie Smith, and I'm a partner at Heidrick and Struggles. I'm also the founder of the Humanity Studio, and I'm looking forward to talking to you today about my new book, Essential. So, why did I write Essential? Well, we need essential leadership in our workplace today. Leadership is hard. It's harder than it's ever been. And leaders are really being impacted by a tsunami of conditions. Employee disengagement is at an all-time high. We are suffering from a skills scarcity and skills shortage in our workplace today. The socioeconomic and political environment has us divided like we've never been before. And we're really faced with instability of being able to predict, especially the political and economic conditions around the world. There's also new technology that's entering into the workplace. AI is making huge advances and seems to be getting smarter and smarter on a daily basis. And businesses and leaders are having a hard time catching up. On top of that, we're really looking at evolving expectations of employees. So let's dig into this a little bit. Trust is at an all-time low within our organizations. 62% of people say worldwide that they trust their businesses. Now, that may seem like a high number. When you factor into that countries like Russia, the UAE, and China, that number in Western countries is much lower, more in the 43%. When you look at employees globally and what they say about trust in their leaders, only 32% trust their senior leaders. And 25% of employees overall say that their leaders are even engaged at work. This is a pretty bleak reality that we're faced with today. And the cost is way too high. When you think about the cost of employee disengagement and productivity loss associated with it, we're talking about $8.8 trillion of lost revenue annually. Think about that. That's Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft combined in annual revenues. Compounding that is this silent pandemic that we're not spending a lot of time talking about, which is the mental health crisis. And that is costing us $322 billion annually in lost productivity and employee engagement. That's equal to some of these brands you see on the screen right now. The cost is simply too high. So, what does this mean for leaders? Well, in our research in the book, 100% of leaders say they know they need to change something. They've got to address all of these issues that they're faced with, but only 25% are even considering doing something about it. And single digits are actually taking action. So we can't afford to do nothing. It simply isn't sustainable for our businesses and for our economy. We have to think about the future of work because guess what? It's already here. And we have a responsibility to lead fundamentally differently. So, where do we begin? Well, we begin in the business context. When you think about the business context of any organization, most senior leaders and boards are thinking about two primary questions. One is who runs the place, and the other is how is the place run? And when you think about the business context, that always starts with purpose because purpose informs strategy, strategy informs culture. Culture informs the structure and the talent that you're going to have within your organization. And so everything that we do when we think about leadership has to be in this context for the organization. We have a fundamental shift that's happening in terms of what is expected of leaders, not only from their employees, but most importantly, or equally importantly, I should say, from their customers. Leaders are no longer about being profit driven. They have to be both profit and purpose driven. we're not talking about leaders who are in a command and control environment anymore. That simply doesn't work. We're also talking about leaders who have to be not just leaders and fiduciaries of their organizations, but leaders and fiduciaries of the globe. They are now global citizens. Um, and they must take action as the world is looking for leaders to step in and fill the leadership void. This isn't always going to come from the public sector. Many are looking to private sector leaders to fill the socioeconomic and political ills that seem to be dividing us, not only within countries, but across countries. So, what do we do about this? What's different today with all that I've just talked about in the context of all of that and these shifting demands? What do we need to do? Well, the research of our book, Essential, says that we have to move away from this notion of just emotionally intelligent leaders to emotionally mature leaders. Emotional intelligence has been the anchor that we've gone to for decades in terms of defining what makes a great leader. Those qualities like empathy, communication, transparency, the ability to have a connection with your employee base and your customer base. But those are no longer enough. We need to evolve from that sense of those attributes to how do we show up? Because emotional intelligence is all about me learning about who I am. Emotionally mature leaders are about learning who you are as the employee and who your customers are in a more deep and sustainable way. So, the first question we ask about this is what is, for generations, we've been asking a single one-way question to our employee base, and that is, and to our shareholders and customers, is what do I require of my leadership and my employees? Now, we have an obligation to continue to answer that question. We need to hire the right people. We need to certainly have KPIs that measure the work that they do and the performance of our people. But there is a new question that has emerged, and that is, what do my team or what do my employees require of me? This is now a fundamental shift away from that one-way conversation about what I require of my people and my employees and my teams, to now employees having more of a voice to ask, what does my team require of me? And what we found in the research is that employees are demanding of their leaders and of their organizations four primary things. One, purpose. Does my organization's insides match their outsides in terms of what they say they value, what they say the purpose of the organization is, and what it delivers on? This has become something that we have seen glass houses emerge with the advances in technology of social media, of measurements of companies that are, seen in workers' websites where they are talking about, do these companies live up to their purpose or their values, or don't they? And, it's being litigated in social media, whether companies and leaders themselves are actually doing these things. So purpose is core to what humans require at work. The second is agency. This notion of agency in two ways. One is how, when, where I work. The work, I want to have a say in the work that I do and make sure that that work is tied to the purpose. which requires leaders to actually make that connection for their teams, that the work that each of them are doing is actually purposeful work. And employees want to know and want to have the agency to do that work in the best way that they can possibly do, and to enter into a conversation with their leaders around what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. What we also found is that those that we talked about want agency in a different way, and that is in how they describe who they are. They don't necessarily only want to be defined by the traditional ways that work has defined them, whether that's through their educational institution they've gone to, whether that's in their title, or whether that's in their sexual orientation, their gender, or their race. So employees want to be able to define themselves in their own words. The next is well-being, the expectation that organizations take care of their employees beyond just the traditional benefits and pay. Those two are critically important, obviously, but well-being can mean being associated with organizations around coaching, like Better Up, or those organizations that provide either online counseling, or the opportunity to develop skills and acquire skills and learning on a continuous basis. It could be preventative medicine, or things like the ability to go work out and have a gym membership, but also to help the organization, to help those financially to plan for their futures. So well-being takes on a much more broad definition than what it used to in organizations in comp and benefits. The last area is connection. And this is critically important. We talk a lot about connection, especially in this age of leaders requiring return to office mandates, or making return to office mandates. You know, um, the thing that we found is the most lonely employee in an organization, if it's hybrid or totally or remote in some way, is actually the most lonely is actually those who are in the office, because we're coming to the office and we're working in the same ways we did when we were remote. Leaders are not structuring the work that we do in a way that creates collaboration or connection among employees. There simply haven't been imaginative about how work gets architected or structured. And frankly, employees are saying, you have to do this if you are going to keep me here in these important roles. And there's a large difference between what are human skills and what are power skills. And this is a little bit of what I was talking about earlier in terms of the difference between emotionally intelligent skills like empathy, compassion, transparency, communication, to what we are seeing as power skills. Satya Nadella talks about this quite a bit when he talks about the new soft skills are the new hard skills. These skills that we used to talk about to create transparency, to create connection, to create a sense of agency, to architect work in a meaningful way so that it connects to not only an individual's purpose, but to the purpose of the organization. These are the new power skills. And leaders themselves say, we surveyed 600 CEOs who said that they absolutely know they have to build these power skills, these skills of transparency, communication, empathy, compassion. Those are skills that they didn't grow up getting rewarded within an organization through their leadership positions having. But today they must display them and they must use them. So What we think are part of those new power skills are the essential skills of what we call emotionally mature leaders, those who've evolved beyond just looking at their own attributes and emotional intelligence to actually looking at not themselves, but their employee base and their customer base. So, what are the essential skills of essential leaders? Number one is suspension of self interest. It's not about me anymore as a leader, it's about my employees and the architecting and the understanding of those employees, what makes them tick, what makes them uh, work at their absolute optimal. How do I get them in their zone of performance? Well, this requires the shift from it's all about me to it's not about me at all, it's about my employees and the organization, really requires the behavior of insatiable curiosity. How do I begin to learn how to ask the questions of my employees to understand what makes them tick, understand what work they want to do and how to get it done? How do I understand the context in which they are coming to work? Many of us are coming to work with one hand tied behind our back, either because we have kids who have special needs, or are managing both our kids and aging parents, or that we are thinking about relatives who are abroad and in war-torn countries right now. There's a plethora of things as humans that we come to work with that impact our ability to focus and do our best work. It is the responsibility of the leader to begin to ask questions to really understand this kind of contextual context in which our employees come to work so that we can better help them achieve their goals at work. And the last is focus on how we create cultures of excellence. Cultures of excellence are only built when purpose and strategy are absolutely clear and present in the work that gets done within a group and within the organization's culture and subcultures. And this requires this examination, this flywheel of activity that we articulate here. And that's what makes the essential leader. So for us, the essential leader is about solving for humanity in the workplace, because if we solve for humanity in the workplace, we solve for the humanity and the communities in which that workplace resides. And we simply have to move from this understanding and this complexity of leadership that is looking for magic bullets and technology to say, no, it's the humanity in our organization that is going to drive results for our businesses. And therefore, it's time for us to put humanity back into the heart of business.